How are you guys doing?
Pretty good,
How are
pretty
you?
good, coach.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like 5'9.5". Then I was like, I remember Bob Sanders was about,
He was, yeah.
size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a little bit undersized. The vision is really nickel over safety.
Okay.
So I think that's a little bit more conducive to his skill set.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the little bit shorter limbed, a little bit smaller in stature, like you said. And I think nickels, they need short space quickness. They need the ability to match guys in the slot. Obviously, they're going against typically the quickest receiver. So he matches that profile perfectly. You know, plus high level intelligence, and not to mention we're talking about like off the charts character too, like just true love for ball, and you know, he's going to bring, you know, talent, but he's going to bring leadership as well.
Just how you feel overall? I mean, that's the fourth straight defensive pick. They're trying to get you some help over there.
Yeah, they did an amazing job. This entire process has just been mind blowing. Just the level of collaboration from the scouts to every single national scout, to Terry and his entire crew and every coach. We went all in this process, you know, and had an amazing, just amazing process of being able to fight and argue and ultimately just like eliminate all these blind spots that typically exist when you don't have these conversations. So it was a great process.
How did the two first rounders fit into, or where will they start off at? You know, they might end up somewhere else.
Right.
How they fit into the operation?
They'll both start as edge elements, so they're going to work as outside linebacker / edge / defensive end. Like I said earlier, you know, we're going to be versatile and we're going to be multiple. So, but that's where they're going to start. You know, on first and second down, I want, especially Jalen, to really have an opportunity to just master playing on the edge, because I think there's something there that's really special. Give him an opportunity just to have one home initially and become as good as he can at that, you know. And then from a third down perspective, we can get creative with him, and that'll be part of his superpower. As far as James is concerned, he's going to be edge only, and we'll go from there.
And why? How do you see the third round pick really starting out?
Yeah, that, you know, it's funny, you create these clusters of players at every position, and obviously you have needs and best on board, and there's a lot of things that go into this. And when I kept putting my safety cluster together, you know, we were looking at this, you know, third to fourth round and kind of like the honey hole for that. And to tell you the truth, I didn't even put Watts on it because I had him as a second round guy. You know, I thought he was going to be long gone. If we had our second, he would have definitely, I thought, be part of that conversation. The fact that we didn't have that second anymore, I thought he was out of the conversation. And then, man, he ends up being there, and you know, Terry jumped up for him, which I think he had to, because I think he was going whether to Vegas or to what was the other one, San Fran, whatever it was, the two that were right in front of us. He jumped them and got us another an excellent player, but just as good of a person, just another amazing character addition to this locker room.
How does Watt's background as both a wide receiver and linebacker help him so much as now a safety?
Yeah, he has this amazing, like, he understands defense from a conceptual level where he knows from tip to tip everything that's going on, and you can feel it, you can sense it. Even if you don't know football, you can feel it, because he's got anticipatory stuff that is elite. It's a big reason that he has the ball production that he has. You know, and then the background at receiver, not only does he have the awareness and the instinct to trigger and get the ball, but he's got the actual ball skills to make it count and finish. So, yeah, really cool player. You know, a very similar player, I would have said, to when I evaluated Jesse coming out. You know, guys that play the neck up elitely. You know, he's an exciting one.
What was it about James Pierce Jr. that, you know, made you guys feel so strongly about moving back into the first round and picking him up?
Yeah, I think you could have made a claim that, I'm not saying, you know, you could obviously make projections of what guys will be when you feature them and develop them, et cetera, but as far as if you looked at the best rushers in this draft, you could have made a case that he was the best, you know, the best one from a pure edge element. So we had conviction in that. You know, we did a lot of work on him on the field and off the field, and felt great about the man that he is and the player that he is. So, when he was still there late in the first, it was, I was pounding the table, and I know our entire staff was, and I know Terry was on the same page with that. So it just made too much sense, when you think about, not to get into the logistics of it, but we have high hopes, and not to, I have high hopes for this team, and because of that, I'm anticipating that first round pick next year is late, and because of that, you think of it like, is there going to be a James Pierce type player in the late 20s? I would say absolutely not, in any draft, let alone next year's draft.
He's a guy that you would have been more than happy with at number 15 as well.
Yeah,
I imagine, right?
I think we all would have been comfortable with that.
Yeah, and then get him and Jalen Walker. That's obviously, you're probably pretty excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. It was like you got to 15, and Jalen Walker, for so many reasons, was just too hard to pass up. He stands for everything that we think this football game should embody, and just you're adding just. I can't overstate the fact that not only we had players with great talent that are going to help us on the football field, we collected a bunch of young men that are amazing human beings and high-level character, and they're going to make such an impact, obviously on the football field, but also in the community.
Terry said on the radio that you texted him at like 2 a.m.
Who's that?
Terry said that
Yeah.
on Thursday night, early Friday morning.
I
What did you
did.
say? What are you doing at 2 a.m. that you're texting Terry?
No, I'm just excited and appreciative, for him putting a lot of trust in us as a defensive staff, and that we're going to utilize this guy in the right way. And yeah, like I said, it was just amazing collaboration that it's the best I've ever been around.
Typically, it's historically in the league, it's difficult for rookies and edges to come in and be productive. Your experience as a coach, why is that, and what's the key to kind of getting up to speed quickly as an edge?
Yeah, the games are different, especially nowadays with the college football and the athletic quarterbacks. Half the time you're just trying to contain this athlete back there. You're not necessarily really developing your ability to rush the passer, because in my opinion, rushing the passer is art, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a million times over to master pass rush and become effective at it. So there's traditionally there's some growing pains for a young pass rusher. Now, I'd say this: some of the stuff that we're going to bring schematically to the defense, I think, lessens that burden on some of these guys. Had a lot of success just recently with Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald in New York, both of which young pass rushers came in, and Jermaine year 2 made a Pro Bowl and ascending player, and Will this year had, I think, 13-something sacks, and both very young pass rushers. But I think part of the stuff that we will do schematically will lessen that burden, and because of that, I think they'll have maybe a little bit more success early on than they would have otherwise.
Going off that, talking with James and Jalen yesterday, they were excited to get after the quarterback. So how confident are you bringing them in? You talked about growing pains, but how confident are you that they'll help with those pass rush numbers?
Yeah, like I think part of it is going to be on them, and their ability to come out here and perform at a high level quickly, because nothing will be given away. Like to be a starter on this defense, you have to earn that on the grass. You don't earn that as a draft pick. And they wouldn't want it any other way. So a lot of it will be how quickly they get adjusted to this game, to our scheme, to the defense. But I would anticipate both are going to make an impact earlier than most would probably anticipate.
You mentioned Jalen's superpower is his versatility.
Yeah.
And because of his size and because of that ability to be a linebacker and edge, Micah Parsons jumps out, and he mentioned Mike as being a role model for him.
Yeah.
And maybe even a mentor type person for him. I mean, is that too big of a name to throw out as what you strive for when you look at Jalen?
Yeah, I think Micah he's just a different animal. Not to say that Jalen's not as good. It's just they're different, Like Micah has some really unique athletic traits and some versatility that maybe the NFL hadn't seen before. I wouldn't put that on anybody right now. I think Jalen's he's a player. He's a different player. I'm not saying better or worse. He's just a different player. What they do have in common, though, is that they can both do a lot of things, and they can do a lot of things very well. So, and you're right. And I know everybody's going to keep saying this, but part of his superpower is his versatility. I think sometimes that superpower can be his kryptonite too, because he has amazing aptitude to learn. He has he's an athlete that can do a lot of different things, but he has amazing football IQ. You know, he's a coach's son. He's been raised with this game, and sometimes as a coach, you get that type of player, you just keep throwing things at him because he can just handle it, you know. And you know, I'd really like him to get an opportunity to really master some stuff here before we start, you know, using the Swiss Army knife part of them.
Were you all emphasizing getting guys with great ball skills as far as turnovers this year?
I think that's always a paramount. You know, as we all know, it's the most telling statistic in football. Can you get the ball or not? And when you start to improve your pass rush and you start to get better in that way, you know, ultimately the balls are going to go up in the air and you're going to have opportunities to go get it. So it puts more of a premium on it when you get your rush right. And I think we're nudging our rush in the right direction right now.
And that went in with the DBs as well? When you look at ball skills?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's, you know, you compartmentalize every part of their game: man ability, zone ability, instinct, play style, toughness, effort, all those things. And ball skills, for me, is always one of the top three, always, regardless of position. Anybody that drops into coverage, that's going to be a big part of the evaluation.
Terry and Raheem have always said that the draft process is very collaborative. How involved have you really been, and what has it meant to be involved?
Yeah, like I said, I've never been involved this much, you know, to typically, you know, and this is not just different ways to do things, but I've been in there in systems where you read your report and you keep it moving, and that was not what we did here. You know, we read reports, myself and all the coaches for that matter, and we heard the scouts reports, we heard Terry's opinion, we heard Ryan Pace's, we heard Kyle's, we heard Roz, and then that was just the starting point, and then the real discussions and the hard conversations started after that, you know, and in doing that, it was amazing how, because we dedicated so much time and resources to it, how we found this common place by the time we got to the draft, and we were able to pick some guys that we were really aligned on.
It's hard to forget that you guys had already added Leonard Floyd. How important can he be in the adjustment you mentioned for Jalen and for James Pierce?
Yeah, maybe it's the ex-player in me. I think there's nothing more powerful than just seeing it modeled right in front of you. You know, there's something extremely powerful for a young player to be around that. So having Leonard Floyd here it'll be huge as far as the development of these young guys. Like, an amazing resource, tons of experience. Obviously, he's had tons of production. I mean, it's rare that you get a player like that just has consistently produced as far as pass rush is concerned for so long. And I wouldn't discount Morgan Fox either. You know, he's another guy that, you know, and I always tell young guys that come into this league, like, find the guy early in the locker room that you might not have necessarily known who he was. You know, like, how did that guy that I don't know really well, how has he played 9, 10, 11 years? To me, that's where, like, when a really talented athlete adopts the process of one of these guys that just have played forever, you know, even though they weren't given maybe all the mommy and daddy stuff, that's where greatness lies. The great players that find great process equals greatness. You know, it's not a magic formula. It's real. So having guys like Morgan and Flo will help those guys' development tremendously.
With losing 6 starters from last year's defense, after seeing how this draft has shaped out for you guys, how confident are you feeling heading into training camp, just in terms of the depth that you now have?
I feel great about the guys that we had prior to the draft. You know, last week was my first real interaction with these guys, and the DNA of that group is right. They're eager to learn. They want to be challenged. They want to be pushed. They want to be the reason we win games. They want to be the reason that we hold that trophy up at the end of this thing. So I think they all recognize and acknowledge we got a lot of work to do. But, you know, we got a committed group that's built in the right way. And, yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be challenging. There's gonna be really hard days. But I'm excited to get started with these guys.
I want to say Raheem mentioned last year, actually, that y'all's last stint here, you had like a study on length at linebacker. How did Walker kind of fit in that?
Yeah, typically like that for the linebacker. 32 is that's the threshold. 32 and above, and you're in the positive range. Below 32, and not to say there's not exceptions, because there always are, but that was kind of the line of demarcation, and he's above that. He's above 32 for sure.
He's on the smaller end if you're playing him outside more, right, like at edge. Do you
Yeah.
have any concern?
I don't. Like, I was around a guy in Bryce Huff who ended up going to Philadelphia, who signed a tremendous contract there, you know, and had a lot of success. But him and Jalen are very similar athletes, similar size. They do a lot of things in a similar way. So that's a guy that I've had just lately that had tremendous success playing on the edge and edge only, where I think Jalen might have maybe a little bit more versatility to his game, and he could do a little bit more off the ball, internally blitz, drop, etc.
I'm curious to find out if the coaching experience you had, the head coaching experience you had last year, did it factor in when it came to evaluating players?
Yeah, yeah, I've learned a lot from it, not just in evaluation, but in every facet of this business. I think the biggest part that I translated to the evaluation process was, you know, as an assistant prior to becoming the head coach there, you know, I always felt like it was my duty to give my opinion, but to also like be very, very supportive of his opinion, and at the same time, like, don't put a line in the sand where he's got to make a decision either way, and just give him information, you know. And then when I had that seat, I was like, that is the last thing I want. I want people that don't ride the fence. I want you to tell me you like it like this or like it like this. I want decisions, and then I'll make a decision at that point. So I felt like, and you'd obviously have to ask Terry and Rob, but like, I felt like I was more convicted, and there was no fence riding. This is the vision, and I either want them or I don't, you know, and hopefully that clarity helped everybody.
Is there a physical trait for you that stands out when you're looking for a pass rusher? If he's got to have one thing, he's got to have this.
Yeah, like I kind of put them in two buckets. You know, for me, there's the first bucket is, and there's been a lot of guys I've had success with this: speed, length, explosion. Like that's, and I know that's like obvious, Captain Obvious here, but like if you have those things, you might not have the best bend. You can't turn the toe at the top of the rush. You can't drop your weight in the same way. Very similar to what I had in Jermaine. Very similar to what Verse is in LA. Those guys are explosive. They're super fast. They play violently. They're tough. They're not necessarily the overly bendy guys. So that's the one bucket. And I have tremendous value for that bucket. But then there's also the other bucket of the guy that can reduce surface. He can bend. He has amazing balance. And he can turn the toe at the top of the rush. And he can, you know, he's Brian Burns. He's Will McDonald, who we had in New York. You know, we've all seen that type of guy as well. But I think that those are the two major buckets. Are there exceptions? Of course there are. Like Bryce Huff was an exception in some ways. But, like, that's what I'm looking for as far as pass rush. If you have rigidity in your body, you better have length and explosion and violence. If you have rigidity in your body and you don't, you're not a good candidate for me. You know, you can be bendy, but you better be fast and slick with your hands, and there'll be a better connection with your hands and feet. But those are the two buckets. Not to say it's right or wrong, but it's kind of how I've always looked at pass rush.
And the art of it that you talked about, is that about, you know, understanding the scheme? Is that about hand usage? What is the art?
It's all of it. You know, I was around Freeney here in 2016 when we had him at the back half of his career there, and I got to see a guy with obviously elite pass rush traits, and he had developed that over years. But to hear him talk about protections, to hear him study cadence of the quarterback, like he took this process to a whole nother space. So that's part of it, just the awareness of the offense and all that they do and all the information that you can gather from them to make you a better rusher. But then it goes back to also, like you said, the hand use, the cohesion of the hands and the feet, the timing, and creating a pass rush bag that is relevant to you and your skill sets, you know, and I always do that, and I've said that to the unit twice this past week, was like challenge the coaches to make cut-ups for you, but really like find the comps for you. Like, what is your style of football? And especially for pass rushers. Like, if you're a power guy, then I'll make cut-ups of power guys, you know, similar bodies and play styles. But if you're a guy that's got to be like an assassin with your hands, then let's go find that human being, you know. And you look across the league and you see, obviously, a lot of examples of both.
Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, sir.